There are proposals working their way through the process to deal with these contaminants. For example, to deal with contaminated soil, it's proposed to remove and dispose of the soil off-site, to cover it either with soil or pavement or buildings. The exact details will be worked out in the remedial design phase of this Superfund process. And institutional controls will also be implemented to help protect the health of the public and also the environment from these contaminants. The institutional controls will include a risk management plan that will have requirements that must be complied with anytime there's a project to disturb these covers. Next. The methods to deal with groundwater include treating the plumes with biological and chemical processes to treat the compounds underground in the site, to monitor the groundwater to see how effective those treatments were, and there will also be institutional controls placed on use of groundwater. Anthony? To deal with radiological materials, I'd like to point out that radiologically impacted does not mean that it's necessarily radioactive. It just means that there is some reason to be concerned that there might have been radiological material in this particular spot. And once it's designated as potentially radiological, then it's considered impacted, and then this process gets underway, first with a survey to see if there's anything there, and then to deal with it if anything is found. The buildings will be decontaminated if necessary, and the storm drains and sewer lines are all being excavated. For example, so far over 5 miles of these drains have been excavated along with the soil that overlies them. Parcel D2 is 100% complete, and the others are well on their way. The materials disposed of in landfills, or if it's clean, it's put back where it was removed. And then surveys will be conducted to be sure that everything is authorized for unrestricted release, which is the Navy term for safe for any and all uses. Now, all of those treatment methods can be considered as tools in the toolbox, but how they get combined in each particular site depends on the selection of a remedy, and the remedies are packaged together into different alternatives that are then reviewed under a formal process. And these alternatives get looked at in terms of criteria. They have to protect health and the environment. They have to follow all the laws. And then there are some balancing criteria that help choose among the alternatives that meet these first two. For example, they have to be effective in the short term, and that primarily means that they won't endanger the workers who are doing the remediation. That would be a short-term impact that could weigh in selecting one of the remedies or not. And cost is a factor, but it's not the primary factor. These two, effectively protecting health and the environment, are the main factors. And the state also gets to weigh in on the selection of remedy, and community acceptance is also very important. The community concerns have to be addressed, and the preferences will be considered. But I think it's important to look at these specific words: concerns addressed and preferences considered. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to do what the community asks for unless the community makes a very strong presentation that a particular remedy is acceptable or unacceptable. So it's important to participate in this process through the RAB and by offering comments on these alternatives and the proposed plans. Anthony. This process that I mentioned is referred to by an acronym CERCLA, which means Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act. It's also known as the Superfund Law. And in a remediation of a contaminated site like this, there's a standard step-by-step process that includes a preliminary assessment, a remedial investigation, which is actually taking the samples to see what's there, a feasibility study to consider alternatives, then a proposed plan, and after the proposed plan is selected, then there's a contract, and that's formalized in the record of decision. After that's done, there's an actual design of how to do the remediation, and then a work plan, and eventually, when this is all done successfully, then as far as the Navy's concerned, the site is closed out and it can be transferred over to the city or to someone else for development.